Mga nahayop tulad mo sa kulungan dapat, hindi sa korte. Those words would follow police officer Carlo Reyes like a shadow he could never outrun. They would echo in his mind in the quiet moments. They would return in his dreams. They would become the sentence that defined the rest of his life. But on that morning, as the sun rose slowly over the city and traffic hummed like any other ordinary weekday, Carlo Reyes believed he was untouchable. That morning began like countless others at the regional trial court. Vendors setting up carts of pandesal and cape along the sidewalk, jeepneys honking impatiently, employees hurrying past the gates with ID lanyards swinging against their chests. At exactly 8:43 a.m., Judge Maria Santos stepped out of her car 2 blocks away from the courthouse. She always parked farther than necessary. It wasn't about convenience, it was about humility. She liked walking. It gave her time to breathe, time to think, time to remind herself that the power she carried inside the courtroom did not make her better than anyone else outside of it. She wore no robe, no insignia, no security detail, just a neatly pressed blouse, modest slacks, low heels, and a leather briefcase worn soft by years of use. Inside were case files, handwritten notes, and a fountain pen she had owned since her first year on the bench. For over 23 years, Maria Santos had served the judiciary. She had presided over murder trials, corruption cases, land disputes, domestic abuse hearings. She had seen the worst of humanity and still believed deeply in the rule of law. She believed justice did not need to announce itself. Officer Carlo Reyes noticed her immediately. He leaned against the courthouse gate, adjusting his belt, scanning faces with the practiced gaze of someone who had learned to judge first and listen later. In his mind, the world was neatly divided. People like him, authority, uniform, power, and people like her, poor, insignificant, disposable. Another woman who didn't belong here. Her clothes were too simple, her walk too quiet. Her confidence to him looked like arrogance. He straightened and stepped forward, blocking the courthouse steps just as she reached them. "Where do you think you're going?" He sneered, his voice loud enough to attract attention. Maria stopped. She looked up at him calmly, surprised more than anything else. "To work," she replied softly. That answer annoyed him. Before she could say anything more, his open palm struck her face with a sharp crack that echoed off the stone walls. The impact snapped her head sideways. Pain exploded across her jaw. Her briefcase flew from her hands, spilling documents across the ground. Court seals and legal language scattered like fallen leaves. Gasps rippled through the small crowd nearby. No one moved. No one spoke. Fear does that to people. Before Maria could recover, Reyes grabbed her by the throat and slammed her back against the courthouse wall. The stone was cold, unforgiving. She struggled to breathe. "Mga hayop tulad mo!" He spat inches from her face, breath heavy with contempt. "Sa kulungan dapat, hindi sa korte." Metal cuffs snapped around her wrists. The pain was immediate, sharp, degrading. Other officers gathered, drawn by the spectacle. Some smirked, one laughed. Another lifted his phone and began recording. Judge Maria Santos' vision blurred. Her cheek throbbed, her throat burned. But her eyes remained fixed on something else. The bronze nameplate above the courthouse entrance. Juan Maria L. Santos, presiding judge. Barely 20 steps away. She had spent decades defending the dignity of that building. And now she was being brutalized in front of it, by the very system she had sworn to uphold. Inside the courtroom, Officer Reyes adjusted his uniform and rolled his shoulders back. He had done this many times before. Arrest first, explain later. Lie confidently. The system always listened to men like him. The woman sat at the defendant's bench, wrists still cuffed, a deep bruise forming along her cheekbone. Her posture was straight despite the pain. Her silence unsettled him, but he pushed the feeling aside. "Your Honor," Reyes began smoothly, "I was conducting routine security checks when I encountered a suspicious individual attempting to breach courthouse security." He gestured casually toward Maria. She refused to provide identification, became verbally aggressive, and posed a threat to public safety. The temporary presiding judge, Judge Roberto Villanueva, nodded. "And what exactly raised your suspicion, officer?" "She was dressed inappropriately for court proceedings," Reyes replied without hesitation. "Carrying what appeared to be stolen legal documents. When questioned, she became hostile." 2 officers in the gallery exchanged glances. They'd heard this story before. "She claimed she was someone important," Reyes continued, a small smirk creeping onto his face. "Judges, lawyers, these people say anything to avoid accountability." Judge Villanueva leaned forward. "Did she resist arrest?" "Yes, Your Honor. She became physically combative. I applied only the minimum force necessary." His hand trembled, just slightly. The stenographer typed every word. From the back row, a young court clerk frowned. Something about the woman's voice earlier. Something about her face. The prosecutor stood. "Officer Reyes, how often do you encounter individuals like this?" "Unfortunately, quite often," Reyes said. "They play the victim. They cry discrimination." A few heads nodded. Reyes pulled out his phone. "I have partial footage. My body camera malfunctioned this morning." "How convenient," Maria said quietly. Judge Villanueva looked up. "Excuse me?" "Nothing, Your Honor," she replied. The prosecutor nodded. "The state recommends charges of trespassing, resisting arrest, and assault on a police officer." Reyes exhaled. Another win. "The accused may now speak." Maria Santos stood slowly, despite the bruises. Despite the cuffs, despite the humiliation, she stood with dignity that filled the room. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said evenly. Her voice was calm, measured. "I would like to clarify several inaccuracies in Officer Reyes's testimony." Judge Villanueva blinked. "First," Maria continued, "I was walking on a public sidewalk at exactly 8:47 a.m. Public sidewalks are open to all citizens." The prosecutor frowned. "Second, the documents I was carrying are legitimate court files, which I am authorized to possess in my professional capacity." "Professional capacity?" Judge Villanueva asked. Maria paused. "Santos, Judge Maria Santos," she said gently. "We'll come to that shortly." The air changed. A ripple moved through the room. "Officer Reyes claims I was verbally aggressive," she continued. "Any response I gave occurred after being assaulted without cause." The young clerk's eyes widened. "Regarding the body camera malfunction," Maria said firmly, "this courthouse has CCTV coverage at all entrances. Body camera footage is also automatically backed up." Reyes' face drained of color. "I respectfully request preservation of all footage between 8:45 and 9:15 a.m. "Objection!" the prosecutor shouted. Maria turned calmly. "Self-represented defendants have the right to present evidence, and the prosecution has a duty to preserve exculpatory evidence." Silence. Judge Villanueva swallowed. "Miss Santos, you seem very familiar with procedure." "I have experience," she replied. She reached into her jacket. Her ID, her access card, her judicial credentials. The bailiff froze. "Your Honor," he whispered. Maria held up the leather wallet. The gold seal gleamed. "I believe," she said softly, "there has been a serious misunderstanding." Judge Villanueva's voice shook. "Court will recess for 15 minutes. When court resumed, everything had changed. All rise. Court is now in session." The Honorable Judge Maria Santos presiding. Officer Reyes went rigid. Judge Villanueva stepped aside, pale. Maria Santos entered wearing her black robe. The bruise was still visible. She sat. "Officer Reyes," she said quietly. "Remain standing." She played the footage. The slap, the choke. The words, "Mga hayop tulad mo, sa kulungan dapat, hindi sa korte." Then the audio, "Teach her a lesson." Silence filled the room. "Officer Reyes," Judge Santos said, "you testified under oath. That testimony was false." She paused. "For 6 months I have coordinated an internal investigation into police misconduct." His knees buckled. "You assaulted a sitting judge. You committed perjury, and you exposed abuse of authority." She raised the gavel. "Actions have consequences." 20 minutes later, Officer Carlo Reyes sat in the defendant's chair. Judge Santos stood. "For 23 years I have served this court," she said. "And today, justice will be served again." She met his eyes. "You did not assault a powerless woman. You assaulted justice itself." The gavel struck. "Guilty, 25 years. 6 months later, cases reopened. Convictions overturned. Officers dismissed. Policies reformed. The courthouse was renamed Santos Justice Hall. A plaque reads, 'Here, justice found its voice.' Because sometimes justice is quiet. Sometimes it wears civilian clothes. And sometimes, justice fights back. Lesson: never underestimate the power of truth. Never assume power makes you untouchable. And never forget, no one is above the law.